Hey. Welcome to The Resistance. I'm Chris, and today I'm talking about Zohran Mamdani, the New York City mayor-elect, and communist. No, not a communist. Democratic Socialist. But if you go online, specifically Twitter, and maybe some other places, you're going to see a lot of videos and a lot of tweets and a lot of blogs of people calling this guy a full-on communist, that he's going to destroy New York City, that he's also some sort of jihadist, and all this other bullshit that's just not true. And today, I was browsing Twitter, and I stumbled upon this guy, Byron Donalds. He is a very opinionated man, and in this tweet he says that communism failed Cuba, Venezuela, USSR, Eastern Europe. It's never worked. And he says that Zohran's communist policies are going to undermine themselves, and New York will now experience the disaster of this failed ideology firsthand. Now, this thing has 2.7 million views, 52,000 hearts, lots of stuff. And now we're going to go ahead and watch a clip of this interview. So why don't you join me? Let's go ahead and watch it.
When you put in communist and yes, communist policies, that's what Zohran Mamdani is talking about.
He's not a communist.
It never
Democratic
works.
Socialist. He says he's Democratic
I can't tell what the difference is.
Well, he can describe
Explain what the difference is.
He can describe the differences for you. The socialism is not the same basis of communism in this country. You know that quite
The
well.
man wants to create government-run grocery stores. He wants free transportation, both of which are impossible to do. Because
you know that communism is a trigger word to try to undermine all of his policies. He's not a. He says he's a socialist.
I don't need to undermine his policies. His policies undermine himself.
Well,
because they've never
that.
worked. Here's all I want him to do. Tell me where they've ever worked. They've never worked. He knows that, I knows that. But what he's trying to do is promise everybody something that they can't have. And the truth is there is no free lunch, just like there's no free bus. Because you know what happens when you have a free bus? There's nobody there to fix it or to drive it. He knows that, I know that, you know that. America does know it. And it's unfortunate that the city of New York, my former home city, is probably going to have to go through this.
Okay. So, he could not tell the difference between Zohran Mamdani's communism and, or not, now I'm doing it. He's got me all swept up in the propaganda. So he can't tell the difference between communism and Zohran's democratic socialism. He either doesn't understand the difference between the two, or he's lying to the American people because he has an agenda that he wants to push. And my theory is that, and I think this is other people's theories as well, as why they're so scared of Mamdani. They're calling him a communist because they're trying to spook the American people. Because if his policies do end up being successful, the Republican Party is going to have to adapt to that. It's going to be hard to beat free transportation, universal child care, cheaper groceries because of government-operated grocery stores. That's going to be hard to compete with because Republican and conservatism is the antithesis of democratic socialism. So, in this video, I kind of want to break down what the difference is between the two, because it is important and there is a huge difference. You know, to equate the two is just, it's disingenuous. Okay, so let me pull up my notes here, and we're gonna walk through some of the stuff that I've been trying to figure out. Okay, so what's the difference? So communism is an economic system in which the state or the collective owns the means of production, factories, farms, and property. So in practice, this often meant that governments try to centrally plan production, deciding how much to farm or manufacture, sometimes leading to a shortage or famine. Private property is abolished, and transitions to communism have historically involved revolutions and the seizure of private assets by the state. So, essentially, keywords here is centrally planning the distribution of goods and services is not good, but that is kind of a signature of communism, and the abolition of private property. So those are kind of the two main ideas here that we should focus on. Okay, now democratic socialism, on the other hand, operates within the democratic framework and largely market-based system. Private businesses continue to exist, but the government plays a major role in ensuring equality through strong public programs. regulation, and redistribution. Democratic Socialists typically want to expand public services, not abolish private ownership. So, the key difference here is that Democratic Socialists don't want to centrally plan, and they don't want to abolish private property. They want to exist within the market, and they want private property to also continue to exist. All right. So, does Zohran Mamdani want to abolish private property, and does he want to overthrow capitalism? He does not. That's the short answer. He does not want to do that. And here's the longer answer. Okay. So we're going to start talking about what he ran on. Okay, so he ran on freeze rent, so he wanted to freeze rent on stabilized apartments. He wants to provide free or universal child care. He wants to make city buses fare free, and he wants to open city-owned grocery stores, one in each borough. Okay. So I think we should start with the grocery stores, because that's the scary one. People think that Mamdani is going to replace grocery stores and that this is going to lead to some sort of famine in New York. Okay, so let's kind of break down the misconceptions by focusing on what these grocery stores actually are. Okay, so Mamdani's proposal is for city-owned stores that sell food at cost to the community. So the city would fund the rent, the utilities, and salaries of employees, and they would provide subsidies to keep food prices low. Any money earned from sales would go directly back into restocking shelves. So these stores wouldn't replace private grocery businesses. Okay, they'd exist alongside them. All right, so that's the key word here. Where this is the democratic socialism. In a communist system, Zohran would take the existing grocery stores into city ownership and then operate them himself. So he's not doing that. Okay, so these stores would not replace these private grocery businesses. They exist alongside them, offering an affordable public option. Mamdani compares this idea to how public schools or libraries operate, government-funded services designed to meet essential needs without eliminating private alternatives. So, importantly, Mamdani's plan does not involve government taking ownership of farms, distributors, or factories. That is the means of production in communism. Okay? His goal is to make daily necessities more affordable through targeted public ownership and subsidies, not to implement a fully planned economy. Okay. So in that sense, his agenda fits squarely within democratic socialism. It's a belief that government should provide core services and reduce inequality, but still within a democratic system and a mixed economy. Now, will this work? It's hard to say. There are failed and successful examples here in the States, but there's not many. All right. Reading through some of the stuff, I found that St. Paul, Kansas had a St. Paul market that is still running today, and it's government operated and owned. Okay. It has operated successfully for years, bringing in modest profits and providing essential groceries to the small town of 600 people. And so the key to success here was that it's small scaled, it has community support, and it has some competent management. Now, there are also failed examples. For example, in Baldwin, Florida, a government-operated grocery store had to close down because they just could not compete with the local grocery stores around them. So they said that the chain stores could buy in bigger volumes and stock their inventory for cheaper, while they had to sell their stuff a little bit more expensive so that they could cover some of the costs of operating the grocery store. And because of their inability to buy in big volume, they failed. Okay, so yeah, there is potential for success and there is potential for failure. And apart from that, I want to note that Mamdani proposes that this pilot program consists of only 5 stores, one in each borough, located in a food desert. Okay. It's going to cost roughly $60 million a year. And when you take into account the $115.9 billion budget, it only accounts for about 0.0518% of the budget. It's a drop in the bucket. Even if his estimates are wrong, it's still not going to cost New York City much to run these things. Now, if they fell, they fell. But at least he tried. Okay. And so providing free childcare and making city buses fair and free are simply more examples of the kind of strong public programs Mamdani supports, services he believes he can reduce inequality and improve everyday life. Okay? Now, this other one, this was a very contentious one that people are railing against, is the rent freezes. Now, this one I'm also iffy on. I don't know if this is going to be a good idea for him to implement, but in short, he wants to have a 4-year rent freeze during his mayoral how do you say that? During his tenure, all right? It's important to note that this is not a communist policy, all right? He does not plan to seize property from landlords. The goal is to freeze rent and provide relief to tenants in New York City. And now, keep in mind that rent freezes have happened in New York before Mamdani, okay? I think once in 2020 and then once in 2014. And yes, they were not communists then, and they're not communists now, okay? Is it realistic? Based on my research, it's possible, really difficult to implement, and there could be unintended consequences, all right? So the two major challenges are in long-term rent freezes are the pressure on property owners. With rents locked, landlords' margins shrink, making it harder to cover regular upkeep, repairs, and building maintenance. It also disincentivizes builders to construct more housing because they're less motivated to develop this new housing, which could reduce housing supply and worsen long-term affordability pressures. So, in fairness to Mamdani, he did propose measures to support landlords, especially small mom and pop owners. So some property tax reforms or relief to reduce the burden on smaller landlords, subsidies or grants for building, maintenance, and repairs, so landlords can keep properties in good conditions despite frozen rents. Support for sustainable long-term investment in housing. Okay, so with those in mind, it could help offset those first two major concerns that I just brought up. But despite that, he still has to go around or figure out how to work with the RGB, or the Rent Guideline Board. This is going to be a crucial part of his plan. So the RGB is the independent body that sets rent increases each year using data on operating costs, taxes, and other factors. Securing a 4-year consecutive freeze would require the RGB's agreement each year or political maneuvering, making this aspect of the policy very challenging to guarantee. Okay. So, again, rent freeze is controversial, not communist, could have some unintended consequences, okay? Now that we've gone through all of these proposals, to me it's clear that this isn't communism. It's democratic socialism. These are just programs designed to function within the capitalist system, providing support where the market has failed. At least in theory, they aim to reduce inequality without seizing private property or overthrowing the existing economic system. So, and again, we come back to this question. Now, will any of this work? People are very doubtful. They have little faith in Mamdani. It's really hard to say. But, the people of New York believe that he's the man who can do it. And so, this is going to be an interesting thing to watch develop. And to all of you people who still think that he's a commie, watch the video again. Do some more research. Figure out why he's not a communist, because he's not. He's not going to take your shit. He's not overthrowing the capitalist system. He's the mayor of New York, for God's sake. All right. That is all, folks. Please be safe. Try to stay sane in these crazy times and don't do anything crazy. Love y'all. Goodbye.